Hello friends! Today we are doing my 26 books I want to read in 2026. There will come a year when I stop doing these videos because it's frankly a lot of books to plan out. It's a lot of books to be on a TBR at once. It took me a long time to get this settled, so we'll see if I do this again next year. But for now, enjoy this because I'm excited about it. A lot of these are new releases. Let's get started. So we're gonna start off with The Wild by Louis Bayard. I really want to read this one physically because I tried to do the audiobook and it just didn't work. It is about the story of Oscar Wilde's wife and two sons after his imprisonment for homosexuality, and it's set in like the backdrop of Victorian England and World War I. I think Oscar Wilde is super interesting. From the beginning of this book, which I started, it seems like the wife and Oscar had a very, I think her name was Constance. It seems like Constance, Oscar Wilde's wife, and Oscar had a very loving like partnership. So I'm very interested to hear about like the emotional ramifications of the like imprisonment. So this one has been around a while, but I've been meaning to read it since it came out. It's Caste: The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. I want to actually buy a copy and annotate it. It is basically about the unspoken caste system that has shaped America and how our lives today are still defined by a hierarchy of human division. So again, very light read. Now a fun one, and we're starting the new releases section now. This one I've been pumped about. It's And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. This one is coming out in February of next year, and it is about two competing meteorologists who are looking to find common ground in a like opposites attract, enemies to lovers situation. So this is like the second book in the duology, maybe trilogy, maybe series of B.K. Borison's First Time Caller. So you like see glimpses of them in First Time Caller, and I knew this book was coming when I was reading First Time Caller, so I was like, give me more. I'm actually more excited about this one than I was about First Time Caller. So also look at the cover. Gorgeous. Gorgina. Love. Another new release. This one a little darker. This is Dear Debbie by Frida McFadden. Frida McFadden, she's one, pumping those books out. Two, she is like so well reviewed. So I've never actually read one by her. So I'm very excited about this one. It's coming in January of next year. Debbie Mullen is losing it. For years, she has compiled all of her best advice into her column, Dear Debbie, where the wives of New England come for sympathy and neighborly advice. Through her work, Debbie has heard from countless women who are ignored, belittled, or even abused by their husbands. And Debbie does her best to guide them in the right direction. Or at least, she did. These days, Debbie's life seems to be spiraling out of control. She just lost her job, something strange is happening with her teenage daughters, and her husband is keeping secrets, according to the tracking app she installed on his phone. Now, Debbie's done being the bigger person. She's done being reasonable and practical. It's time to take her own advice, and now it's time for payback. Another new release I want to read is Meet the Newmans by Jennifer Niven. This one is also out in January of next year. So the summary for this one is, for 2 decades, Dell and Dinah Newman and their sons, Guy and Shep, have ruled television as America's favorite family. Millions of viewers tune in every week to watch them play flawless black and white versions of themselves. But now it's 1964, and the Newmans' perfection suddenly feels woefully out of touch. Ratings are in free fall, as are the Newmans themselves. Dell is keeping an explosive secret from his wife, and Dinah is slowly going numb, literally. Steady, stable Guy is hiding the truth about his love life, and rock and roll idol Shep may be in real trouble. When Dell, the creative motor behind the show, is in a mysterious car accident, Dinah decides to take matters into her own hands. She hires Juliet Dunn, an outspoken young reporter, to help her write the final episode. But Dinah and Juliet have wildly different perspectives about what it means to be a woman in a family in 1964. Can the Newmans hold it together to change television history, or will they be canceled before they ever have the chance? That sounds so cool, right? Very interesting, very Leave It to Beaver. So it should be really cool. It sounds like something Taylor Jenkins Reid would write. So, and I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, so should be good. Next we have a nonfiction new release that's out January of next year. This is The Typewriter and the Guillotine, an American journalist, a German serial killer, and Paris on the eve of World War II by Mark Broad. So this is the untold story of a trailblazing female New Yorker reporter in France on the eve of World War II who begins sounding the alarm as a German serial killer stalks the Parisian streets. I am pumped for this one. So from my research, basically she was sent over there to do like fluff work and be like, oh, Europe, haha. And instead she's like, cause she's a woman and it's like the freaking like late 30s, early 40s. And she like is like, no, there's something serious happening here. We need to talk about it. So I'm very excited to see how that all coalesces. Next, another dark one, What Boys Learn by Andromeda Romano Lax. And this one is also out January of next year. So this is a twisty, jaw-dropping psychological thriller that unravels a mother's worst nightmare, that her child is capable of terrible violence when her teenage son becomes a suspect in the murder of 2 classmates. I love a thriller, so this should be really good. Next, Grease Paint by Hannah Levine. Set against a backdrop of 1950s New York, this experimental novel follows an ensemble cast of all singing, all dancing butch dykes and Yiddish anarchists through eternal Friday nights, around the table and at the bar. Can't wait for this one. Very excited. Another queer read is ASL by Jean Thornton. It is 1998. Lilith, Sash, and Abraxa are teenagers, and they are making Saga of the Sorceress, a game that will change everything, if only for the 3 of them. 18 years later, Saga of the Sorceress still exists, only on the scattered drives of its creators. Lilith might be the first trans woman to ever work as an assistant loan underwriter at Dollarwise Investments in Brooklyn, and Sash is in Brooklyn as well, working as a research assistant and part-time webcam dominatrix. Neither knows that the other is there, or that Abraxa, the 3rd member of the Innovation LLC, is just across the river, sleeping on the floor of a friend's grandparents' Jersey City home. They have never met in person and have been out of touch for years, but none have forgotten the sorceress or her quest, still far from finished. Another queer read. We've got a couple more, so buckle up. The Lilac People by Milo Todd. This one is very sad. In 1932 Berlin, Bertie, a trans man, and his friends spend carefree nights at the El Dorado Club, the epicenter of Berlin's queer community. An employee of the renowned Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld at the Institute of Sexual Science, Bertie works to improve queer rights in Germany and beyond. But everything changes when Hitler rises to power. The institute is raided, the El Dorado is shuttered, and queer people are rounded up. Bertie barely escapes with his girlfriend Sophie to a nearby farm. There they take on the identities of an elderly couple and live for more than a decade in isolation. In the final days of the war, with their freedom in sight, Bertie and Sophie find a young trans man collapsed on their property, still dressed in Holocaust prison clothes. They vow to protect him, not from the Nazis, but from the Allied forces who are arresting queer prisoners while liberating the rest of the country. Ironically, as the Allies' vice grip closes on Bertie and his family, their only salvation becomes fleeing to the United States. Brimming with hope, resilience, and the enduring power of community, The Lilac People tells an extraordinary story inspired by real events and recovers an occluded moment of trans history. I'm prepared to weep. Another queer read, Forest Euphoria, The Abounding Queerness of Nature by Patricia Kaizian. Growing up, Patricia Kaizian felt most at home in the swamps and culverts near her house in the Hudson Valley. A child who frequently felt out of place, too much of one thing or not enough of another, she found acceptance in these settings, among other amphibious beings. In snakes, snails, and above all, fungi, she saw her own developing identities as a queer, neurodivergent person reflected back at her. And in them, too, she found a personal path to a life of science. In Forest Euphoria, Kaizian shows us this making of a scientist and introduces readers to the queerness of all life around us. Next, I feel like everyone's already read this one, but Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. There might be no such thing as a perfect guy, but Xavier Rush comes disastrously close. A gorgeous veterinarian giving Greek god vibes, all while cuddling a tiny kitten? Immediately, yes. That is until Xavier opens his mouth and proves that even sculpted gods can say absolutely the wrong thing. Like, really wrong. Of course, there's nothing Samantha loves more than proving an asshole wrong, unless, of course, he can admit he made a mistake. But after one incredible and seemingly endless date, perhaps the best in living history, Samantha is forced to admit the truth, that her family is in crisis and any kind of relationship would be impossible. Samantha begs Xavier to forget her, to remember their night together as perfect, as crushing as they may be. Only, no amount of distance or time is nearly enough to forget that something is between them, and the only thing better than one single perfect memory is to make a life, or even a love, worth remembering. I don't know. For some reason, I'm not very optimistic. I think it's because I was going to a book club and they didn't like Abby Jimenez, and I was like, oh, okay, off the list. But she's so popular that I was like, maybe I'm like missing a boat, so I should get on it. The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This one won the Goodreads Choice Award. It was nominated for Reader's Favorite Fiction, Reader's Favorite Debut Novel, and Reader's Favorite Audiobook. So, very excited. Throughout her life, Sybil Van Antwerp has used letters to make sense of the world and her place in it. Most mornings around 10:30, Sybil sits down to write letters. To her brother, to her best friend, to the president of a university who will not allow her to audit a class she desperately wants to take, to Joan Didion and Larry McMurtry to tell them what she thinks of their latest books, and to one person to whom she writes often, yet never sends the letter. Sybil expects her world to go on as it always has. A mother, a grandmother, a wife, a divorcee, a distinguished lawyer, she has lived a full life. But when letters from someone in her past force her to examine one of the most painful periods of her life, she realizes the letter she's been writing over the years needs to be read, and that she cannot move forward until she finds it in her heart to offer forgiveness. Next, another thriller, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Celebrating her 45th birthday at her local pub, popular podcaster Alex Summers crosses paths with an unassuming woman called Josie Fair. Josie, as it turns out, is also celebrating her 45th birthday. They are, in fact, birthday twins. A few days later, Alex and Josie bump into each other again, this time outside Alex's children's school. Josie has been listening to Alex's podcasts and thinks she might be an interesting subject for her series. She tells Alex, on the cusp of great changes in her life. Josie's life appears to be strange and complicated, and although Alex finds her unsettling, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep making the podcast. And slowly she starts to realize that Josie has been hiding some very dark secrets. But before she knows it, Josie has inveigled her way into Alex's life and into her home. But as quickly as she arrived, Josie disappears. Only then does she discover that Josie has left a terrible and terrifying legacy in her wake, and that Alex has become the subject of her own true crime podcast, with her life and her family lives under mortal threat. Who is Josie Fair and what has she done? I'm tantalized. I'm very excited. I can't wait for this one. This one is a nonfiction piece, Jane Austen, The Secret Radical by Helena Kelly. In this fascinating and revelatory work, Kelly, a dazzling Jane Austen authority, illuminates the radical subjects: slavery, poverty, feminism, the church, evolution among them, considered treasonous at the time, that Austen deftly explores in the 6 novels that have come to embody an age. So, can't wait for that one. Another nonfiction heavy read, Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia by Sabrina Strings. In her very first book, Sociologist Strings explores the historical development of pro-thin, anti-fat ideologies deployed in the support of Western patriarchal white supremacy. A more fun one, Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. It's England, 1879. And Annabelle Archer, the brilliant but destitute daughter of a country vicar, has earned herself a place among the first cohort of female students at the renowned University of Oxford. In return for her scholarship, she must support the rising women's suffrage movement. Her charge: recruit men of influence to champion their cause. Her target: Sebastian Devereux, the cold and calculating Duke of Montgomery who steers Britain's politics at the Queen's command. Her challenge: not to give in to the powerful attraction she can't deny for the man who opposes everything she stands for. Okay, love, love, love. So there's a video coming about this, but I am looking to kick my phone addiction in 2026. So something that I have been thinking about a lot is how I can't focus on anything anymore. I can't like do deep work. I can't concentrate on editing. I haven't been writing. I just don't like where my mind is at. That's why I want to read this one. Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again by Johann Hari. Our ability to pay attention is collapsing. From the New York Times bestselling author comes a groundbreaking examination of why this is happening and how to get our attention back. In the United States, teenagers can focus on one task for only 65 seconds at a time. Office workers average only 3 minutes. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. I don't want that. I don't want to live like that anymore. Next, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is an exploration of friendship, reckoning, and hope, tracing a widow's unlikely connection with a giant Pacific octopus. Next, The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. On a hot day in 1960s Maine, 6-year-old Joe watches his little sister Ruthie sitting on her favorite rock at the edge of the blueberry fields, while their family, the Mi'kmaq people from Nova Scotia, pick fruit. That afternoon, Ruthie vanishes without a trace. As the last person to see her, Joe will be forever haunted by grief, guilt, and the agony of imagining how his life could have been. In an affluent suburb nearby, Norma is growing up as the only child of unhappy parents. She is smart, precocious, and bursting with questions she isn't allowed to ask. Questions about her missing baby photos, or her dark skin, about the strange, vivid dreams of campfires and warm embraces that return night after night. Nora senses there are things her parents aren't telling her, but it will take decades to unravel the secrets they have kept buried since she was a little girl. Now we're hitting up the physical TBR, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I've had this on my shelf forever. The concept has really intrigued me, but I just haven't gotten around to it. It is about a 18-year-old Irish widow. She wants to hold her family together. With a brother on the front line, forced to fight on behalf of the gods now missing from the front line, and a mother drowning her sorrows, Iris's best bet is winning the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. But when Iris's letters to her brother fell into the wrong hands, that of the handsome but cold Roman Kit, her rival at the paper, you see where this is going. Unlikely magical connection forms. Expelled into the middle of a mystical war, magical typewriters in tow. Can their bond withstand the fight for the fate of mankind? And most importantly, love. This one a friend gave to me for my birthday, and I just got this one, so I don't feel as bad about having not read it for a while. Lily isn't exactly thrilled with her arrival in the afterlife. But what awaits her there is more fantastical than she could have ever imagined. Deities wait in line at the coffee shop. Fae fit between realms. Souls find ways to make death a beginning. As she explores the many corners of the afterlife, Lily finds herself surprisingly drawn to a place most people would avoid at all costs: hell. Armed with years of customer service experience and pent-up sarcasm, Lily carves a job out for herself among hell's demons, sending souls to their rightful circles with the perfect amount of sass. Lily's expectations are subverted every day in hell, especially by Belle, a demon general with a distractingly sexy voice. You see where this is going? The two meet by chance and form an immediate, deeply healing friendship, but the undeniable heat between them threatens to combust. So, we'll see what happens. Next, and we're into rereads now. This is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I read this years ago. Probably I think I read this during the pandemic, when the pandemic started. So, 5 years, and I remember loving it. I can't really remember what it's about though, so we'll see. It is set in the year 2059, and for 2 centuries, the Republic of Sion has led an oppressive campaign against unnaturalness in Europe. In London, Paige Mahoney holds a high rank in the criminal underworld. The right hand of the ruthless White Binder, Paige is a dreamwalker, a rare and formidable kind of clairvoyant. Under Sion law, she commits treason simply by breathing. When Paige is arrested for murder, she meets the mysterious founders of Sion, who have designs on her uncommon abilities. If she survives and escapes, she must use every skill at her disposal and put her trust in someone who ought to be her enemy. I remember loving this. Do I know? Now now that I remember what it's about a little bit, I'm like, let's go. Oh my gosh, I love this one. Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the 3rd book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, and this is a reread for me. It was my favorite book of 2022, I think, maybe 2023. I think it was like my number 1 book for 2023. So I can't wait to reread this. I love it so much. It's a very much like, it's very classic. It's an enemies to lovers book. Basically, she hits this guy with her car and he breaks his arm, and she's like, oh my god, what can I do? And he needs help running his B&B. So she like takes over cooking in his B&B for him, and kind of like finds her purpose and like comes to terms with things about herself. So I really recommend this if you haven't read it. There is neurodivergence rep, which was super important to me. This was like revelatory when I read it. So love. Okay, good. Another reread, another favorite is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. It gives very Howl's Moving Castle, to be honest. All sorcerers are evil. Elizabeth has known that as long as she has known anything. Raised as a foundling in one of Ostermere's great libraries, she's a magical librarian. Elizabeth has grown up among magical grimoires that rattle beneath iron chains, capable of transforming into grotesque monsters. When an act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire, Elizabeth is accused of treason. With no one to turn to but her sworn enemy, the sorcerer Nathaniel Thorne, and his mysterious servant, she finds herself entangled in a centuries-old conspiracy. Not only could the great libraries go up in flames, but the world along with them. If you haven't read anything by Margaret Rogerson, I would start with this one. I also have, I have an Enchantment of Ravens up there on my favorites shelf, but this one is my true favorite of hers. She also wrote Vespertine, which was super cool. So honestly, just give Margaret Rogerson a try. She does really cool fantasy stuff. So finally, I know this has been a long video. Thank you for sticking it out if you made it to the end. This is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I read this year when it came out, and I'm gonna reread this before the movie comes out because I'm just pumped for it. So yeah. All right, that concludes our video today. Let me know what new releases you're really looking forward to, because I'm always looking for new books, as you know. Also, let me know like the top 5 of your TBR for 2026, because I would love to know. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.